Welcome, everyone, to the March 7th, 2024 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I'm Kara Myers, Chair of the Commission, and I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves.
Kyle Wobser.
Laura DiCaprio.
Doris Davis Fritch.
And Chuck Smith.
So before we start the meeting, I'd like to briefly explain the procedures we'll be following tonight and share a couple of housekeeping items. If you are planning to speak tonight and have not already done so, you can sign up. The sheet should be at the front table over here. Please also silence your cell phones during the meeting. I always have to remind myself to do that. Tonight, following review of our January 4th and February 1st meeting minutes, there will be one action considered to complete the certificate of appropriateness to alter a landmark property by repairing an existing porch. After an overview of the railing details, there will be time for public comment, then the commission will discuss and deliberate. Following this case, we will move to discuss the potential for a new village historic district, as well as allow some time for any updates on other commission activities. So first order of business is to approve the meetings of the January 4th, 2024 meeting. So, well, we can do that because I was here, Doris, Kyle. Are there any items that you were concerned about? Are you set with it?
Yeah.
Good, okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes.
I just want to add that Chuck and Laura abstained.
Okay, thank you. That Chuck and Laura abstained because they were not here. So, and I don't have my, does everyone have the February 1st meeting
Yes.
minutes? It's, oh. I do, because I got it. All right, thank you. So let's see, so. All right, we have enough people here to review this. Did anyone, did you have the chance to take a look at it? Were there any concerns, comments regarding the meeting minutes? I did not personally have any.
Oh, well, I did.
Do you need, here, do
I
you,
actually did, but I spoke
did you already fix them?
with Jill about it. I thought the contractor who spoke to, I thought that the name of the contractor who spoke to the group should be included in the minutes.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 1st, 2024?
I'll make that motion.
With the amended,
Uh,
do you agree
I'll-
on the amendment I suggested?
Adding the contractor's name?
Because he spoke, he was attending and he spoke.
Sure. All right. I'll second the motion with that amendment. So now we'll move to.
Oh, do you want to vote?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against, motion passes,
And Kyle abstained.
and Kyle abstained. I'm going to have to put that in my notes,
That
the
Kyle-
abstaining.
Yes.
No, that Kyle will always abstain. All right, so case one, if Jill, would you please read that for us?
Yep, and I do want to go on the record that Laura DiCaprio is the applicant, and so she's going to recuse herself from participating in the deliberation and voting on the case. Kyle Wobser has reviewed the minutes and the previous staff report as well as the current staff report, and so he'll be able to participate this evening in the conversation, deliberations, and vote. So case number 1 is a certificate of appropriateness. The address is 185 North Main Street. The applicant is Laura DiCaprio. The request is to review the lower portion of the columns and the railing system as part of the repair of the existing porch on a landmark structure. So if everyone recalls, the application was before the commission last month, and a portion of the application was approved. And that's noted on the first page of the staff report. So Laura, do you want to describe to us, and I can put, Dan, if you don't mind, you can barely see that. Yep,
I was just going to say that it's in the second to last page, on the back of the page in our packets, there's the contractor did the details that were requested, a new drawing. Laura, I'm going to pass this over to you.
Sure. So before, just to refresh everyone's memory, the columns, I think there are 8 columns, if I remember correctly, were just straight columns from top to bottom. And then after discussion, we decided as a group to make it a little more ornate from the bottom 2.5 feet to make it look more accurate to the original columns that were on the house built in the 1850s. So we went back and did that, and this is a rendition of what that would look like. And there was also a request to see what the railing would look like going around the bottom, specifically the spacing of the rails and the size of the rails. So those are indicated here as well. And I have a couple of samples here too I can walk through. So these are what the rails are going to be. They're 2-inch by 2-inch, and they'll be 2 inches apart, so spaced evenly apart. The very top of the columns, you can see it has a cap on the top of the column, which is going to be made out of this, look like this. So this is going to be like around each 4 side, if that makes sense. It's at a very slight angle, so that water will come off of it and it won't, collect. That's how it was described to me. So that'll be at the very top of the columns there.
You're not talking about here.
No, I'm talking about down here. Yep, so that's what that would look like. These are the top railings. The handrail at the top has this shape. So at the very top there, that's the shape. So would it be like, I don't know. I guess, the way he explained it to me is that it would be a little cutout, and so it would be like there. But yeah. Does that make sense if they would cut it? Yeah, there'd be a little cutout here, and then it would so these would slip in. Yeah. So that's the top. And then here's and here's the bottom. Again, a little bit bottom up there. Yeah. And that's the bottom, has a little shape at the bottom too. So those are the samples that I brought.
You say they're going to be 2 inches apart. What is the measure right now between those two?
I don't know. I don't know what the measurement is.
My initial reaction was that they were quite tight, but I will, together, but I will go with the group's decision on that. It's just, again, it's very hard to compare it if you don't have the exact measurements of the old.
So Chuck, I know that you had made some of the comments about the base of the column and wrapping around. Is this what you were considering when you were sharing that with Laura and the contractor last meeting?
Yes, I think that as I saw it, the bottom piece was slightly wider than the base itself.
I do see that he has the 5 must be, is it 1 1/4, 5/4 Aztec base, that wrapping that you had talked about, it being wider, that wraps around the whole column.
Yeah, we talked about that, and then our contractor friend thought that was a good idea, but I don't see that in this sketch, but maybe it's here.
Just do this sketch, is that better, easier to read? Right here, Chuck, is that the wrapping? This 5/4?
No, I see that.
Chuck, are you looking to have something like the cap also at the bottom of the column?
Yes, I thought that like this piece we've got two verticals with two spacers, top and bottom, to create a panel. And I just thought that the bottom piece would wrap all the way around and be slightly bigger than the side pieces. So you'd see a line all the way around, and that's what I talked to the contractor about. And I don't think it's any cost difference, but I'm sensitive to that, so. Laura, do you want to talk?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
No, I'm not really clear. Like, are you talking about this as a whole is bigger? So the post here is wider than this post? Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, this is blown up. This is good. What I was saying was that this.
If you could just say that into the microphone. Thank you.
What I'm saying is that the bottom trim is 4 pieces that go all the way around and create. Then these pieces are slightly smaller. So like this is 5/4 AZAC, and then this could be wood. My point was that this piece here that connects to a horizontal surface, which is the area that rots, I was suggesting that that be PVC because PVC is expensive, but if you use it just here, it saves a lot of grief, whereas anything up here could be, wood or whatever. But that this piece is, the line goes all the way around to sort of form a visual base.
Could you speak into the?
No, I wouldn't. No, I'd leave it just like,
You had that go right into the base?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've never seen this type of molding, this rounded molding. It doesn't seem, well, in my mind, it should be non-rounded. I don't know what you call it. So, but I don't, I've never seen anything like that. So I'd expect just a simple molding, 3 different areas of molding. And my question to Laura about the spacing of the, now that I see this in a bigger drawing, I think it's just the spacing on this section got a little tight, and I think this reflects the 2 inches between, because this is a little bit truer to what it would look like. This is a little tighter than this. But the 2 inches in that part of it looks good, so that satisfies me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, without the contractor here, I remember we did talk about that, and he did say that that's what we would do. The, putting the PVC down here for, the rotting and all that stuff. My question is this still historically accurate? So if we were to move forward with this, is this still okay? Or is it a matter of preference? Because I'm just so I know what we're dealing with.
my opinion is that we're creating something that's compatible with the historic detail. We're not matching anything really here. So it is subjective, isn't it? So, yeah. But I actually, and that kind of addresses the comment, Doris's comment about that cap. Yeah, I kind of like it, even though, it's a subjective, I kind of like it, but I think it fits the character of the house. So we're allowing the contractor and the homeowner to be a little creative here and create their own column. And I think that happened all the time 150 years ago. So
If I could ask a question, are we thinking that the design as submitted is appropriate? No. So is the desire to add the condition that the bottom portion that will be similar to the cap be added to the columns?
Well,
No.
and one other thing, I'm just wanting to make sure that if Kyle has anything before we start,
Yeah.
zoning in on the actual conditions, make sure if Kyle would like to say anything. And I'm just going to say from my perspective, looking at this, I like, the proportion, the details, the weight at the base of the columns. I understand what Chuck is saying about that, the bottom portion of that, and making sure that for weatherproofing and that type of thing. But I think it looks like a very attractive, and I think it makes sense to me. So I would agree with what Chuck is saying with having the base around that. But other than that, I don't have any other comments, and I just want to make sure that Kyle can have his say too.
I like the recommendations Chuck made for slightly different reasons, but adding the base at the bottom, I think, adds more mass. And so I think of columns, I always think of weight transferring down through the column, and you want it to be a little bit thicker. So adding the trim seems natural to me, seems like it's meant to be there. I do think that picture framing in the middle and not letting this dive into the top of the base would be my personal preference, but it's not a deal breaker for me. And I actually like the rounded trim because when you look at the existing pictures, there's rounded trim all over the column. So I think it's a nice kind of nod to what was there before.
And I agree with you about the picture framing. I guess I was assuming that would kind of move up a little bit rather than going down into the base of it. But Chuck, did you have something else you wanted to add?
yeah, I'm okay with if the group wants it picture framed. I don't care either way. I think it would work fine without it. But as far as the column, the top of the columns, I believe Laura had suggested that a detail be added later based on budget issues. So if you want, can we address that?
Yeah, we talked about that last time, how this was fine for this stage of the porch. And then, if we have a chance to, continue to add on to it, that would become a priority at that point.
That is fine with me. I believe we should, though, approve her doing that and put that in the decision that at a later date that is going to be done, and then we have supported that addition to the column.
Yeah, that if she
Something like
chooses to
that.
do that, so she doesn't have to come back.
Right, and that we do support it then.
Did you talk about finishes, colors? And the reason why I'm asking, it looks like the existing columns have almost like a banding of paint or, I guess, okay. Just, sorry, just want to make sure I was on the same page.
No, and after the porch is redone, the plan is to get the house painted. And we, well, this doesn't really matter because we're getting rid of those columns. But yes, we're going to keep everything on the porch white.
Was there anything else that any commissioners wanted to comment on? And so is there anyone who would like to speak for or opposed to this application? So, sorry, Joel, maybe now we can get to the conditions. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't writing and then having to change.
I like to ask these questions for myself so I can better understand. And if we're formulating what the direction we might want to go, it makes sense to have that conversation as we're discussing. So when I prompt you guys with questions and ask about conditions, it's not that the expectation is a vote soon, but trying to kind of gauge where the commission's at. So based on that, let's go through the standards and then we can have a conversation about what those conditions might look like. And if you can be very specific with those conditions, that'll be helpful to me.
So should I close the public portion of this meeting?
Yes.
All right. The public portion is closed.
Unless there are any other questions that anybody would like to ask of Laura, of the applicant.
Anyone? No? All right, thank you.
All right, so we'll start out with the general design, character, and appropriateness to the property of the proposed alteration or new construction. And again, I want to emphasize that we're reviewing the lower portion of the columns and the railing system. So previously, we had heard the rest of the proposal for the porch. So with regard to the lower portion of the columns and the railing system, would somebody like to respond to the general design, character, and appropriateness to the property of the proposed alteration or new construction?
I'm very pleased with this redo of the porch, making it much more appropriate for the Italianate house. And the weight and the height and those proportions, I think, are excellent. I'm very pleased that the homeowner has taken such care to come to us with a plan that's so appropriate.
Any additional comments? Okay, number 2, the scale of the proposed alteration or new construction in relation to the property itself, surrounding properties in the neighborhood.
It is the same scale as the original porch. So it fits.
If you could be specific to the railing system and the columns.
If we're talking about proportions and scale, yes?
Yep.
Okay. The original porch, which was put on turn of the century, is a 20th century porch, is quite grand and large, and the scale is appropriate, though, to the size and scale of the house. And so because the new porch is of the same size and scale, it is very appropriate.
Hot potato.
Okay, I'm gonna probe a little bit. So would it be fair to say that you feel that the columns and railing system are an appropriate scale for the rest of the porch design? Perfect. Okay. 3, texture and materials and the relation to similar features of other properties in the neighborhood. So the applicant has come back to the commission with examples of the materials that will be used for the railing system and for the columns. So if you could speak to those a bit and how they relate to the rest of the structure, the porch and the house.
Similar to the overall porch, the texture and materials of the proposed railing system are very appropriate because they will either be wood or appear as wood, matching the existing house.
Anything else on that?
I think it's important to add that the wood is painted. And since the wood is painted, or since the assembly of the columns and the railing system is painted, we feel it is appropriate to substitute water-resistant materials in certain vulnerable areas to create a long-lasting structure.
Okay, anything else on that? All right, 4, visual compatibility with surrounding properties, including proportion of the property's front facade, proportion and arrangement of windows and other openings within the facade, roof shape, and the rhythm of spacing of properties and streets, including setback. So again, this is directly related to the columns and the railing system.
I like Laura's answer. It's yes.
It's just yes. Let's
yes.
expand on that a little bit. Do you like the spacing of the columns? Do you like the spacing of the spindles?
The proposed alteration match the columns. The column spacing matches the existing. There's been no change, although the shape of the columns is being switched to a square, which is more appropriate to the historic nature of the original porches and porch columns. Correct. No. Strike that.
The original drawings had turned spindles.
I was talking about the columns.
Oh, the columns. Spindles.
But let's talk about the spindles.
They're simpler.
Yeah, the simple spindles in their proportion and rhythm are a very familiar rhythm that one would see in a house of this age and style, so it's very appropriate.
Anything additional on that? Okay, 5, the importance of historic architectural or other features to the significance of the property. So I think the bottom of the columns and the railing are important to the porch. They're significant to the porch, and without those elements, the porch would look very different.
Kyle had a good comment on that, on the weight of the columns.
Yep.
And how they really anchor themselves to the house and makes it.
Can you, can Kyle repeat that?
Oh, jeez. So I like adding the trim to the bottom of the columns. Adds mass to the columns and it helps ground it to the front porch. It also relates back to what was the columns, or what the columns currently look like, where they have kind of a base to it, while it's slightly different shape. It is more mass.
Anything additional on that? Okay, so let's talk conditions. What would you like to see at the base of the columns?
Do you want to do that, Chuck? That was the only condition, correct? The base of the columns, and then we were going to add also about if they wanted to do the top trim.
Yes, the condition one is that the bottom of the column have a continuous base trim of that is slightly wider than the rest of the base of the column. So the column itself is 6 inches. The box of the column, the box base, looks like it's about 7.5, and then the base trim would be approximately 8 inches square. And I'm saying approximately so that we don't hold the contractor to that exact inch.
Okay, let me read this back because I want to make sure that I got this correct. The bottom of the columns have a continuous base trim that is slightly wider than the base, the box base, and that would be approximately 8 inches square. Okay. Yep, that'll be a condition of, yep. The addition at the bottom. And then for the second, I think what might be appropriate is that on condition that the applicant is given approval to install decorative features at the top of the column, if they choose. Trim at the column. If desired in the future. Okay. Do we have a first?
That is the motion?
So the motion would be, and I can read this, to review the lower portion of the columns and the railing system as part of the repair of the existing porch on a landmark structure with the conditions, as earlier noted, with the addition of the box base, approximately 8 inches square, and additional trim at the top of the column if desired in the future.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Yep.
Okay, so now we're tagging Laura back in
Yes.
as the alternate member to participate in the discussion going forward.
So this is kind of an interesting new business. It's voting in a chair and a deputy chair. However, I don't know how you want to approach this. I'll let you tell me that.
Do we want to nominate anyone for the chair? Oh,
My understanding is that the village board, the mayor appoints the chair.
that is correct. And so, yep, in well,
deputy.
yep, for HPC, what happens is there's a recommendation that's issued because our meetings didn't line up with the organizational meeting of village board. The chair at that point was reappointed, being Kara Myers. And so at this time, if Kara decides that she no longer wants to serve, or if there's the appointment of a different chair, then we would advance that to the village board for their appointment. So there's a lot going on there.
And that's why I was saying it was a little awkward. I'm kind
Yep,
of like,
it is a
"But I
little
already
awkward.
signed some-"
Yep.
Yeah,
But
it is.
Doris, you are absolutely correct that the deputy chair is chosen amongst the members.
So basically, if we'd lined up with their schedule, we would basically, as a group, agree on who we would like to be chair and propose that name
Correct. So
So-
what we'll do is next year, we're gonna do this really early. We'll do it in October.
in the fall, so we don't lose track. But
Yep.
no. I
Yep,
know.
absolutely.
Well, I would like to propose, if the group agrees, that Kara be chair for another additional year. And
I agree.
we're all set.
Okay. Do we want to,
Yeah, I'm fine. It was just really awkward in January and then, yeah. So, the next thing that we need to do, is a deputy chair. I know that David has offered to continue in that position. If someone would prefer that they would like to be in that position too, then, we can discuss that, but if, I'll put that up for discussion.
I'm fine with David being the deputy. I'll recommend him.
I always nominate the guy that's not here, so.
I'm fine with David being deputy chair.
Me too.
Abstain. All right, so I think we do have to vote on this, so make a motion that David Stites will be the deputy chair of the Fairport Historic Preservation Commission. Well, I'll make that motion then. Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Yeah. Yep. So, Jill very kindly provided us with a number of maps to review to help us in our discussion about a potential historic district, an additional historic district in the village. I don't know if folks were able to get out and walk the area. Oh. Wow. I know that a few of us walked around and interestingly, it almost created more questions than when we started. It looked a little more simple to say, oh, here's the era of this street and, it should probably include this, but when you get out there, there's a little more complexity, I think, to the conversation. Thank you, Chuck. Can you see that, Laura?
Yeah. It's the same as our printout.
Yes, and for those of you who weren't here a little bit earlier, Jill did go through this enlarged image right here. She put hash marks, blue hash marks, to show additional designated houses on the map so that you're aware of this. This is from 2014, so she updated that. And will be, she now has the all the different layers of the original map and is intending to not remove this, but make an additional map that's updated.
so the large maps in front of you, feel free to mark those up. I have some highlighters if you'd like to, there's 2 of them. And so those, if you want to mark them up, draw boundaries, whatever, they're working maps.
Oh, there's 3 of them. You can each take one home.
So while we're looking at these, I just want to emphasize for the audience and for those folks watching this at home, that the Historic Preservation Commission is evaluating the potential of additional National Register districts. So these aren't locally designated districts, but rather National Register districts. And we had a discussion about National Register districts the last time that we met to talk about the benefits of. So there are no regulations involved with a National Register district that the Historic Preservation Commission is dealing with. So it's not, if there's a National Register district, it doesn't end up that your property has to come before the Historic Preservation Commission, but the Historic Preservation Commission is always here to assist.
And do you want to do the quick benefits?
Sure, the benefits are many. So I think the biggest benefit is that if you are in a National Register district and you are contributing property, you then have access to funding in terms of tax relief, tax credits, state tax credits for the projects that you might be working on. And of course, that has to go through the State Office of Historic Preservation. But again, it's not a regulatory district, it's a benefit district.
Thank you.
Have we had any interest from any homeowners or a group of homeowners wanting their street or area to be a historic district? No? Not that I know of. Okay, okay. And then you said you have some in mind. Do you want to just talk about what you were thinking?
Sure, well, what we had talked about, and I'll let, Doris can talk more about the history of it, but we had talked about having a periphery that would it would include Woodlawn Avenue. It would go down the middle of West Church Street. Right, we didn't say the south side of West Church Street. So this is where it gets a little iffy. So let me just say, so Woodlawn Avenue, it would go down past Potter Park, which is already its own district. Then it would cross the street. I don't know if you can see this line. It would encompass the homes along the south side of West Church Street, move over, capture, actually go down to Main Street. We had talked about potentially capture a number of the designated houses, the bank, come back around, go up Perrin Street, and then when you get down to West Avenue, it would encompass the whole north side of that street all the way to 156, 155, which is the same era, the late 1800s, 1870s, of that Woodlawn area. So it would come back around here, back down to Woodlawn. So it gets, as you get walking around, you're like, but what about this house? What about that? But that was where we pretty much started out.
I mean, so if it's already that big, why not 4th Ave and 5th Ave, just to make it a box?
4th Avenue and 5th Avenue are completely different eras. You have, for a National Register district, you need two things. You need an historical connection, and you need architectural similarities.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so again, we sort of really talked, we really had it a little bit smaller until we started walking around. And then we realized that we should bring it out. I think we really talked about Perrin to Woodlawn, and then we didn't know whether we would cross the street or not. And as we walked around, it made sense to just bring it up to Main Street, because we have so many properties there that are already designated. And things like Village Landing, they wouldn't be in the district because they are too new. They would not be contributing to the feeling and the history and the character of that district. So things like that, you can make a big circle around it, but they wouldn't be qualified for any advantages of it, even if we did wrap them into the border. But then, so when if we were to use Woodlawn, for instance, Woodlawn was part of the Martin Woods land, and they actually subdivided Woodlawn and started building around 1880, 1890. So the properties that we have included are all in that era. And again, when we started walking around, it really just seemed that the West Avenue also had those same characteristics and same history. We get towards the end of West Avenue, towards Nelson, and then those houses become 1920, 1900 houses, and a whole different history and era. So it is a really big district.
Yeah, it is. Is it harder to get a big district approved than it is a smaller district, or is it the same amount of work?
Can you just repeat that into
more-
the microphone?
it's
Because these
more
are really good
work.
questions.
Yeah, I just asked, is it a harder, longer process to get a larger district approved as opposed to a smaller district?
You know, it definitely would be more work, but I think that what I came away with, and I think maybe we all came away with, unfortunately David's not here to talk about, but I think he was feeling the same way, is really once we get a general idea of what we're thinking, is getting is Virginia out here to walk with us and give us her opinion, because I think, to me, there are, you know, you're exactly right, Laura, it's like there's so many questions, like how would the state look at this, what really, you know, she's done so many of these, she can give us her professional opinion. And one of the other interesting things was, we're saying, so then there's other also very cool potential districts in the village. And if you start doing that, who do you do, like 5 of them? Do you leave people out? Like, all of that, I'd be really interested to hear what, you know, Virginia has to say about that, you know, how other communities have handled this. And, you know, we want it to be a very positive thing.
Laura, to answer your question, in 2014, the architectural firm worked with us and also SHPO to do the survey, and they were very enthused about districts. And they proposed that entire southwest side, more than what we're thinking, a bit, much bigger one. And part of that was Potter, which we've already done. And Potter was about 22 properties. And before we just did our walk a couple days ago, it was about 80 in the district we were talking about last month. And so it's now 20 more. If we agree that. And again, I think we need to come to an understanding of what we want to do. And then Virginia Bartos will definitely be a huge help to us, and she's very familiar with the village. She'll have some good advice, and we walked down West Avenue, she said, no, stop it here. You know, maybe the quality, the integrity of the houses might have changed too much in certain sections, and she may recommend not even wrapping them in. And, you know, Joe was asking about the amount of work, and I think I volunteered basically to do the section of the application that goes house by house and does a description of the architecture and any history we can find out that basically ties into the overall history of that area. So I'm still willing, 90, 80, whatever. But it's 2 paragraphs per building. It's not an entire inventory form. And you know what the form's like. It's difficult, but I'm willing to do that section. I'm not a skilled writer, and the other part of it is extremely hard for me. But I love doing that part. So I don't care how many houses, we'll just keep working on it. It is going to take a while. It took about 6 months to do Potter. And of course, that was the first time we as a group had ever done anything like that. So it'll take us a while. And then, you know, the schedule, they meet every quarter or something like that. So that puts off the actual application presentation, depending on their schedule. So it's not a quick thing. It's, answer your question?
So the properties that would benefit, are they the orange, green, and green-yellow properties?
I'm sorry, say that again.
The properties that would benefit from being in this district, would they be the orange, green, and yellow-green?
Right, except for not the non-contributing.
So even
Well-
the yellow.
Well, the thing is that we have in this whole area, we have quite a few designated already locally. So we've done the research and we know, and it's a high integrity property. But there are others that we could designate, and then there's the yellow, which are contributing, that probably would never individually be designated. But that's why this is so good for a neighborhood, because properties that wouldn't necessarily by themselves be National Register or local designated properties will benefit from the tax credit programs. And it's economically a real good for the village to have those kinds of funds available to people. And the funds are only available if they're doing it, the state doesn't approve putting siding on a house or replacing windows. They approve taking siding off a house and repair, roofing, even kitchens. Some of the people that have applied for help and tax credits have redone kitchens. So they can invest internally and externally. And apparently, if they get approval of the projects, only 5% of it has to be external. So there's, if you need a foundation work, that's preserving your house. There's a lot that can be approved for using this program.
Is this gray line what they had?
Kara, if you could just grab the microphone.
That's what the survey recommended.
All right, so what I was asking is if the gray line that surrounds most of this color, if this was the recommendation for the district.
There's really only two, that huge one there and South Main.
So I'll repeat that. There's, on this map that we're looking at right now, and again, this is from the 2014 survey, that they discussed two historic districts. So the South Main Street Potential Historic District and the West Avenue, West Church, Potter Place Potential Historic District. And those are symbolized by the gray boundaries.
Thank you.
And all this information is also on the website. So the 2014 survey, if you go to the Historic Preservation Commission page on the village website, you can see all of this information.
Well, it's interesting that the lines that are being discussed are pretty faithful to what the 2014 survey was describing. We're just reducing it a little bit, but they identified the entire length of West Avenue, so which is what we're looking at. And Perrin Street could use the help, so I think that's why we should include that.
Parent Street has two houses that would qualify for local designation if,
Laura, did you
very strong.
No, I really don't have anything to add. I like the idea of going big if we can with the district, because it is going to be a lot of work. We might as well try to get as many houses as possible on the first go. So I was just looking at everything. I like it.
Can we ask the state what they think the lifespan of the tax credits will be? Well, tax credits aren't forever. It has to be legislated. And so the legislation is going to end soon, and then it either is renewed or not. So, you know, it certainly, yes, it certainly is something we should consider. So,
And just another question, if a house is already on the National Register, I see some of them, do they have to pick and choose what tax credit they apply for, or is it the same? It's the same, okay.
And one of the other things that we had talked about, that kind of going back and forth, would you sweep down here and actually include, you know, the all the way down to the bank, so past the church, and then, you know, designated homes, and have that as part of it? Because I don't know, or I guess this is a question, you know, would there ever be a Main Street district that encompassed a longer distance? You know, they have the area up here, but there's some beautiful homes down here, historic homes. So that was the question in this, you know, and it's probably a question for Virginia, I'm sure, too.
Can you modify districts to that point? If you extend it or include this and then do a Main Street later, could you switch or overlap?
Right.
You would just, no, you don't need to overlap, but you would just do it from here to there. You just stop there and call it a South Main District, right? Because what we're talking about, this property right here are South Main, but they're in the center of the village, I don't know, I guess. I think the next step really is, if we want to tackle this project, and I'm totally for it, and I think the next step, if we want to do this, is to, you need to write a preliminary application and submit it. And that's when we can get Virginia here, and we can make some real concrete decision as to how big this district is, and should we wrap, you know, the properties on South Main into it. That's really the next step, if everybody, unless we as a group need to do a little bit more digging
And I think
ourselves before we want to put it on paper.
And I think we'd also want to present earlier rather than later to the village board, so that they're aware also of what the Historic Preservation Commission is working on. So if they do get members or questions from the constituents, residents, or property owners, that they're aware of the project that's.
Yeah, I think there's.
need to define the area before
Yep, yep, but at some point,
do any outreach to the other boards.
yep.
So it's not all up in the air like it is right now.
Correct, yep. So as we formulate more of, okay, this is gonna be the boundaries, we do need to alert the village board.
So, and I was going to say, I think that getting the stakeholders on board, and I almost feel that, you know, before we get anything into writing, I would love to have an informal discussion with Virginia about this. I think it could really provide some direction before we start putting a lot of time and effort into this. And I'm sure she'd be happy to do that. The other thing, I know a number of us have this, maybe from the Potter District. Does everyone have this? So this is what I'm holding up, is it's on the website for the state, the New York State and National Register of Historic Places, Help for Nomination Sponsors Historic District Nominations. So it goes through, you know, all of the different steps of the process, what responsibilities, you know, education of the community, just, you know, all the different steps throughout it, the 12 to 18 month, you know, process.
Kara,
So,
would you like me to arrange a Zoom meeting with Virginia Bartos?
yes, I would.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Perhaps we'll have it with a couple of members, and then we can update the rest of the board, and perhaps Virginia then will present down the road to the entire commission, and then we can, you know, go from there. But I'll,
She probably will be in town in April.
correct.
Preservation conference.
Yep,
So now's probably a real good time.
yeah. I will not be in town during that time period. So we'll work on something, but let's have that be our first next step, is to have a Zoom meeting or phone call or whatever that looks like with Virginia Bartos, and tell her what we're thinking, and then perhaps she can present to the entire commission and we can have a little bit of a deeper dive.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, Jill.
We have a consensus that we want to move forward with this idea?
I think it's a good idea.
Are you capturing all of that?
There's a
All right.
consensus, we want to look into this.
One other question you could ask, or we could figure out, is the status of Packett's Glen Apartments. Because it's a little complicated. On one lot are the condos in the back, which were the playing fields, and the school district office, which is on West Church Street. And it seems to me, well, that is actually a separate lot on the school district office. So that would be just a non-contributor to the district, and I would include that. But I just don't know how you handle Packet Glen's Apartments as,
The back of that lot.
right, the donut of it, you know.
Which is showing outside of the,
It's this,
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's showing
new
outside
part.
of this.
yeah.
So this is another interesting question, though. The school district office, it's probably 50 years old by now, right? So what happens with that? Like, where is that line? So it's, you know, what was it, Belt?
As far as the district's concerned, architecturally, it doesn't go with anything, and historically, it doesn't go with anything.
But neither does Fifth Avenue.
Whether we're not considering you.
But I'm saying when they did this, it's just a question. I'm not asking anyone to answer it. It's just those are the kind of things that can come up. And also, I know there's a lot of concern about what's going to be happening to that office. But
So it was brown, it was rated brown, which is non-contributing.
Right.
Even though it was in the district.
right, right.
Can this map ever change?
But
So the map from 2014, I hesitate to change that much. I would create a new map and redate it, because that goes along with the survey that was completed in 2014.
So basically, you could properly change designation or status or however you all call it.
Absolutely. So I think, and Doris might be able to speak a little bit more to this, there are differences between, there was changes between the survey from 1976 and the survey in 2014 on specific properties that they had undergone changes during that time period. Whether it was they had siding put on, windows replaced, et cetera, that perhaps in the 1976 survey, they were a contributing property. And then when surveyed again in 2014, maybe they were non-contributing because of the alterations that had occurred.
And some of the properties actually improved.
That was more or less wondering.
Yeah, the one specifically on West Avenue on the corner of Cole, I think it is. The siding was all taken off and it was restored, basically. It improved since 76 survey. So,
All right,
Any
so
other thoughts on this? We're all set with moving forward, trying to get a Zoom meeting together, and then we'll just keep, you know, moving forward. And when it gets to a point where we feel that we have an area that's we're comfortable with, then we can start talking to stakeholders and presenting this information. Okay. So in the updates, what I had suggested to Jill is that all of our different areas, our goals kind of for the year, that if we just listed them down here, it would remind us, you know, what we should be moving forward with, talking about maybe providing opportunities for all the commissioners who might volunteer for these different areas to report back to us. It can be quick, or you can say nothing this month, but just to remind us of what's going on. We just talked about the historic district, education and support. I know that, we kept a little bit up to date on our, in our shared, what is it, open? OneDrive. you know, what we've been doing, Jill has been providing us with a lot of different opportunities for training and that type of thing. Oh, which brings to mind that we are going to be able to find out how much training each of us has had so far this year.
Yep, and so I will contact everybody individually and let you know where you are for the training. Keep in mind that if I send you a webinar and it's passed, but I send you a recording, if you watch that, let me know, because that counts still as training. So a lot of the webinars that are shown for historic preservation tend to be at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, which are kind of challenging for people to attend. So if you partake in one at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, let me know, because we can count that. The other exciting adventure that's coming up is the State Preservation Conference. And because we are a certified local government, we qualify for the opportunity to apply for scholarships. So if you haven't applied and you want to go, let me know, because they are looking at those now and awarding scholarships. I believe we do have one member that's already received notification that they've been awarded a scholarship.
So how many scholarships are there?
They never tell us.
I didn't want to apply and take it away from someone.
No, you should apply.
I
Everybody should
applied.
apply.
And Dave got one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody should apply, because the worst thing they do is they say no. As a CLG, it's almost like we're part of this exclusive club. So we get these great opportunities, and this is one of them. The cool part about this conference is that, and we are a member of the National Association of Preservation Commissions, and they hold a training for boards. To have the NAPC come to a board training is very expensive, because you have to pay for them to travel, their stay, etc. They're actually going to conduct that training on Monday of the preservation conference. So that's a really big deal. So if you haven't, if you want to attend and you haven't applied for a scholarship and you want the link resent or you need some help applying, let me know. I'm happy to do that. And I know that the state wants people to apply.
There was something that Dave said that if you did get the scholarship, you were required to attend
The Monday.
Monday. So
Yep.
just keep that in mind. If your Monday's booked, then you might not want to. Yeah. So, but I want to thank Jill too for providing all of these opportunities. There's been just some really great webinars and things like that. So they're coming rapidly, you know. It's like we have our choices of training, that's for sure.
Yeah, we only need 4 hours. If you want to go above 4 hours, you can most definitely do that. One of the things that we're hoping to be able to do in the coming year is have additional trainings, and perhaps we'll be able to get more joint board trainings where we'll all sit in here and watch some webinars together. So there's a lot of opportunities to easily get your training hours. So I'm working on creating those so that it's not, you know, you're already volunteers and you're already giving of your time, and then I'm going to say to you, hey, go sit somewhere for 4 hours. So I can appreciate that. So what we're going to do is try to incorporate training into our actual meeting schedules, and that's for all of the boards.
The preservation conference coming up, I wondered if you would extend an invitation both to the boards and the village board and just let them know what's happening.
Absolutely.
Even if they could participate in part of it, I think they'd get a lot out of it.
Absolutely. So what I did do is I wanted to make sure that if anybody from the Historic Preservation Commission wanted to apply for a scholarship, that they did so first. I then extended the application link to the chair of the planning board and chair of the zoning board of appeals, because they are members of the zoning code update working group, and I thought it might be something that they may be interested in. So I will now extend it. Tomorrow I will send it out to everyone else, because again, they can apply for that CLG scholarship as well.
Did you want to say more on the training? So I'm actually going to jump over to ask Laura if you had any other thoughts on the newsletter and marketing, and I don't know if you've worked with Jill on that.
Yeah, so I haven't worked on anything this month yet, but we had talked in the beginning of the year. I put together a little calendar, and this month I was going to do a little blurb on 58 South Main, the bank, and just, about what's going on there, maybe a little history. But I also saw that the bank and the owners of Bonnie and Clyde were featured in 585 magazine this month, and it's a really cute little article. So I was going to just maybe think about pushing that out with a link and with a little bit of history, and just kind of, if the article is already written, why not just, send that out with a little thing from the village, like, hey, check this out or whatever. So that was going to be for this month. So I'll get that over to you probably Monday or Tuesday, if that's okay. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think if anyone else has anything to say, we can cover that as well too. But the one item that I know we've talked about is the scavenger hunt. And I'm going to ask Jill, I know she's been trying to pull together a meeting with the tree board so that we could get that started.
So the tree board, I believe, meets on March 12th, and they're going to discuss again whether or not they would like to be involved. So I'm waiting to hear back from the tree board if they would like to continue. There's been discussion, it's my understanding amongst the tree board, that perhaps it should be an every other year event versus an annual event. So once I hear back from the tree board, we can then figure out, okay, what are our next steps? I enjoyed working with the tree board. I thought it was a great event. So we'll see where they're at in terms of their desire to do it as a every other year or an annual event, and we'll go from there.
Do we want to do it regardless?
I think that's something we should probably discuss after we hear from the tree board and see, do we want to continue, do we want to do just historic homes? Do we want to focus on one particular neighborhood? Do we want to dedicate our time to the National Register pursuit and perhaps have events associated with that? So I think we have a lot to think about in the next month.
Can we discuss and consider having a booth at the farmer's market this year? The spring is upon us, but maybe next September we could talk about doing that.
I'll volunteer to see if we can get a slot. And if we can, then I'll bring it up with everybody. And I would like to offer to lead the charge on that event. Because I always enjoy it. We didn't do it last year, and I enjoyed it. I enjoy it when we do it. So, yeah.
So this is the calendar that we have in our shared drive, but I know it's challenging to get into that shared drive sometime, but I've been trying to kind of keep it up to date and also put in all of the different trainings we've had, because I think it would be nice at the end of the year to be able to share, this is what the commission has done, and it's just a little bit easier then, because you forget kind of all the work that you've done in different projects, I think, very often.
Jill, question? Do you still do Are we still required to do the yearly report for the CLG?
We are.
And it is, the CLG year is different than a calendar year.
It is. So the state budget year is obviously April 1st to March 31st. And so I anticipate getting the document to fill out probably within the next couple of weeks. There, our CLG contact, Linda Mackey, has left the state, and she is pursuing other dreams. And so our new CLG contact will be Frances Stern. So I reached out to her today, making a contact. And so I anticipate that they will send that documentation to us to be completed soon.
But it is a good document to be able to share, as Kara's saying, because one of the questions is always how much our training.
Yep.
So I think that it's something we could share with the board, as well as, just do what we need to do and fill it out. It is a good annual report of what we've been doing, so.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the Historic Preservation Commission is the most active land use board, and does a lot for the community, has a large impact on how Fairport looks. And I think that's evident by the agendas. So the village board and the management team at the village receive the agendas and the decision grids. So they are kept abreast of everything that goes before all of the land use boards, including Historic Preservation Commission. So they know you're active.
It was, I've written the reports many years, so it's really fun to see how much we've done in a 1 or 2 pages, how many designations, what we're working on and all the training that we did. So it's just it's sort of a, okay, this is what we've done. It helps you set your goals for the next year, really, once you've summarized all the work you've done in a year, so.
And I don't want to hold us up too much. It's getting a little bit later here. But, as you look forward here, we've got a SHPO grant that would be due in May, and I'm trying to remember where we ended up with that. It's also National Historic Preservation Month, if we want to leverage that somehow. I know that that was part of the scavenger hunt aspect of it too, was doing that. But, so just putting those 2 items out there. We don't have to talk about them tonight, but, they're coming up. Unless you want to say, I can't remember, we've talked about so many different things for this grant. We could spend it 5 times.
Yeah, I think we've spent all of the state's money already. We talked about some options that we could pursue, but I think some of those options are directly related to the zoning code update. So it may be that for some of those things, we wait until next year, but, we still have time, I think, to consider, is there something that we want to apply for a grant for? And it doesn't have to be a significant project. It could be, we'd like to put together bookmarks for the library for Preservation Month. So that could be something that we do if we decide that we're not going to do the scavenger hunt. We could still pursue a grant for bookmarks to put out the word about historic preservation. So I think there's options.
Does anyone else have anything or want to volunteer for anything or any ideas coming up? No? All right. Just want to make sure that we have this opportunity maybe at the end of each meeting to kind of just quickly run through stuff.
Can I just add
Sure.
a little bit about the zoning code
Absolutely.
update? So those folks that are tuning in, the village is currently working on a zoning code update. There is a link on the village website that's dedicated to the zoning code update. And so that's where all the information will be. I will be before the village board on Monday to provide an update on where we're at. And so I encourage everyone to check out the website and also to be part of the process. And I think part of that process is also attending the land use board meetings so you can see all the great work that the members do. And they're all volunteers.
Thank you, Jill. Any other discussion? A motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion. I make that motion to adjourn, thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.